U.S. Modernist Radio is part of DesignNetwork.org, exclusive architecture and design podcasts reaching creative listeners worldwide.
Hi, this is Janice Siegel from the Manhattan Transfer, and my partners and I are coming up to our 50th anniversary. Can you believe that? I also have 2 new solo records out, both on iTunes. You're listening, lucky people, to U.S. Modernist Radio.
Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Oh, I don't care what Mama don't allow, gonna draw mine modern anyhow. Mama don't allow no architecture around here.
Welcome to U.S. Modernist Radio, where we talk and laugh with people who enjoy, own, create, dream about, preserve, love, and hate modernist architecture, the most exciting and controversial buildings in the world. The Stahl House in Los Angeles is among the most famous houses in the world. Designed by Pierre Koenig and engineered by William Porush, the Stahl House and its pool were immortalized in photos made by legendary design photographer Julius Shulman. All were part of a panel discussion at the Palm Springs Museum of Art earlier this year. In a conversation recorded poolside at the swanky Hotel Skylark in Palm Springs, our George Smart talks with Shari Stahl Gronwald and Bruce Stahl. They grew up in the Stahl House and spent a lot of time in that pool. Joining them is author and journalist Kim Cross talking about the new definitive book called The Stahl House, Case Study House Number 22, The Making of a Modernist Icon. We'll also have an update on the New York Architecture and Design Festival with executive director and friend of the show, Kyle Bergman. Finally, we'll meet a musical architect and artist, Albert McDonald. And now here's your host, not an architect, certainly not an artist. He can sort of sing. Here's George Smart.
Thanks, Tom. I am definitely not an artist, although my one painting was indeed featured in the Cameron Museum of Art in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Wow.
I would love to claim it was a one-man show of my astonishing painting portfolio, but it was, in fact, something museums rarely do anymore, an open call for art. Hundreds of pieces from all over North Carolina were exhibited there one summer. It was lovely for the artist, and I'm sure a pain in the ass for the museum. Thank you, Cameron Museum. A Charles Gwathmey design, by the way.
Wow.
My painting has been painted over by a real artist, Robert Box of New York, and this better version sits in my office.
He didn't cover up the canvas, did he?
Oh, yes. I gave it to him and said, do something better with this.
Wow.
And he did. But let's get back to architecture. Last May, I was honored to moderate a program for the Palm Springs Museum of Art, which featured one of my very favorite houses, the Stahl House in Los Angeles. It's a 2-bedroom, 2,300 square foot home with glass walls that show off a stunning 207-degree panorama of Los Angeles. Ladies and gentlemen, please start your Googling. You'll probably find Julius Shulman's famous photos first. This house is a place you must add to your bucket list, and the good news is you can schedule a visit at stahlhouse.com. The house itself is a celebrity with a career exceeding many human stars. From appearing on Adam 12, Emergency, and twice on Columbo, it's been in the movies Smog, The Marrying Man, Karina, Playing by Heart, Why Do Fools Fall in Love, Galaxy Quest, Nurse Betty, and Where the Truth Lies. It's even been on The Simpsons, which is an honor for anybody, really.
Oh, wow.
The Stahl family has and continues the family tradition of jumping off the roof into the pool, which you can see in the book. I've been there several times and can't wait to return. Perhaps they'll let me jump off the roof, too. U.S. Modernist Radio is underwritten by Wendy Robineau and Don Beskin, and by modernist realtor Angela Roll.
In our ongoing space saga, it's Episode 7, Modernism Awakens. Fearless rebel leader and former slave girl, Princess Angela Roll, has vanished. In her absence, the sinister 5-story gray building alliance has mobilized faux balconies and granite countertops and will not rest until Angela and the last modernists have been destroyed. On her frozen homeworld, where the last Starbucks closed a generation ago and the mocha frappuccinos are made from tasty yet disturbing Soylent Green.
You'll need to Google Soylent Green Charlton Heston.
Angela's followers hope to find her and restore design harmony throughout the galaxy. 4 solar systems and a planet over, the rules don't apply to me. Rogue pilot and part-time roofer Bjarke Shingles locks in on Angela's coordinates and brokers a deal with Lord Vader's second son, Brad Vader, an orthodontist on the Wiki homeworld. After putting braces on Wookiees, which was never a fun job, he joins Bjarke on the quest to rescue Princess Angela. But back here on Earth, this century's Angela Roll is your heroine of modernist houses, using her architectural training to specialize in modernist real estate, advising buyers and sellers on everything from appropriate renovation to finding an orthodontist without daddy issues. Angela Roll is your special real estate agent. Reach her at angelaroll.com. That's ROEHL, or call her at 919-995-0550.
Thank you, Tom. Bruce Stahl and Shari Stahl Gronwald are siblings who grew up in the Stahl House and own it today, managing architectural tours, music and film shoots, and their commitment to honoring their parents, Buck and Carlotta Stahl's legacy by sharing how this miraculous home came to be. In 1999, the house was declared as a Los Angeles Historic Cultural Monument, and in 2007, the National AIA listed the Stahl House as one of the top 150 structures on its America's Favorite Architecture list. This was one of only 11 in Southern California, and the only privately owned house on the list. The house is a star, but the pool really influences the lives of the family.
Shari Stahl Gronwald runs Stahl House Incorporated with her brother Bruce. On the swim team at Venice High School, she set a school record for the 50-yard freestyle. She spent 20 years in the banking, golf, cable, and mortgage industries, ending as vice president of payroll for Countrywide. In 2004, she quit her job to care for her parents, Buck and Carlotta, in their final years, and now she coordinates the Stahl House's many tours and media appearances. Bruce Stahl runs Stahl House Incorporated with his sister Shari and also owns Bruce Stahl's Pool Service. He set Venice High School school records in the 50-yard, 100-yard, and 200-yard freestyle, and he was recruited to UC Santa Barbara by legendary swim coach Greg Wilson. He helped lead UCSB to its first PC2A championship, the first of many in the school's history. A world-ranked swimmer from 1979 to 1982, he held a world record and he still competes, this time with frozen water, on an ice hockey team called Pineapple Hill. Where does he end his daily pool service route? The Stahl House to check on his childhood pool.
Kim Cross is a New York Times best-selling author and winning athlete. She's a national champion water skier and has competed in biking, sprint triathlons, off-road triathlons, and 24-hour adventure racing. She loves wheelies, dirt jumps, fly fishing, swimming long distances, long walks on the beach, and pina coladas. No, I digress. And riding in the snow in Idaho, where she coaches her son's NICA mountain bike team. Her first book, What Stands in a Storm, chronicled 2011's 349 tornadoes in 21 states. And her new book is The Stahl House, The Making of a Modernist Icon, the official Stahl family-endorsed house story. Let's go poolside to the swanky Hotel Skylark and my conversation with Shari, Bruce, and Kim. I'm going to start out with Kim Cross. Hi, Kim.
Hi, how are you?
So as I understand it, you have immersed yourself fully in the Stahl pool.
Indeed.
Knowing almost nothing about it previously?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So what precipitated this deep dive?
Well, I guess, so I live in Boise, Idaho, and Shari also lives in Idaho, and she approached me, I guess, how did you hear about me?
Through a friend in Boise. He's a realtor, mid-century modern homes in Boise. That's his niche. TJ is his name, and he introduced us. What was the other author's name?
His name was Alan Heathcock.
Yeah, Alan Heathcock, and we went and met with Alan Heathcock, but unfortunately Alan Heathcock was definitely working on a book and didn't have the time to take on another project.
Okay.
So he ended up getting back to us. He goes, I think I know the author you need to reach out to. So he gave me Kim's information, and that's how we met. We met at a little coffee shop across the street from her son's school, and we started talking and realized that we actually had a lot in common as far as some of events in our past life that we went through, and it just brought us closer together. We realized that we are very similar, and I enjoyed her book. I enjoyed what she was telling me and how she likes to write and how she likes to really get immersed in her story. And really, she does a lot of research. She doesn't just do surface research. She dives deep.
Right.
And I really liked that because she was unearthing things that we didn't even know, which was really fascinating during the story. But that's how we met initially.
Now, Kim, had you sort of innocently come across the house before? Like, had you seen it in a movie or a TV spot or something and just not known quite what it was?
I have to say no.
Yeah.
She was clueless.
I don't even, I really, like, we don't have a TV at home just by choice. I'm not, completely off the grid, but we, I
saw you chopping your own firewood, I think, the other day, right?
Yes, I do that. But no, it's not my realm of interest. And I'm pretty sure I have seen it in a movie, but I probably wasn't aware of it. So it was intriguing. To me, it was the biography of a house. And I think as a storyteller, I was drawn to the idea that this house has a story of its own. It has its own kind of narrative arc. And it started as this dream that people thought was impossible to build, and it turned into a real pain in the butt to actually make into a reality. And then it became a home. And I think that's the part that is missing from a lot of the incredible stuff that's already written about the house. And then it became this icon through a museum exhibition, and then it became a celebrity in its own right. And the fact that it's a house that needs a manager, and that's what Shari has to do. That's fascinating.
The troublemaker. That's what I do.
Now, Bruce, you've been at the house a lot over this last number of years. So, what are some of the places people might have seen the house on TV or movies? What are some of the productions that have come through?
Well, yeah, there's so many that you tend to lose count in who's been there and who's not been there. One of the recent ones. We had Louis Vuitton up there doing a fashion shoot just recently, but going back to movies, we've had Galaxy Quest, which is turning into a cult movie.
Oh yeah, that was the one with
Tim Allen.
Tim Allen, yeah.
Yeah, and we've done things from Marrying Man to First Power, even the very first movie that was shot there, a movie called Smog. It was a kind of a C-rate Italian movie.
Not even B.
Yeah, it was
not even available on YouTube.
It's but that was, I think, 1964.
I think it was 62 or
62. Yeah, it might have been 62.
Wow, that was early on.
Yeah.
So
So that's when
as soon as they moved in,
the house first got its taste of in front of the camera. But I'm there pretty much all the time. I live in L.A. area, and I'm the hands-on guy. Shari is more the books and bookings and paperwork at the house. I got to meet people out there for doing maintenance and brush clearing and the normal things you need to do to a house on a day-to-day basis.
Going to meetings with the neighborhood, things like that.
Yeah. Well, keeping the neighbors content, because the house sits on a private dead-end road. So every homeowner up on that hill owns a section of the road. So we have to stay in good standing with them, because if they say enough's enough, then the neighbors get together and say, you can't have any more of this. So
right.
We're very mindful of how late shoots go. We have a hard out at 10, which means you drop everything and leave, or you're packed up, but you got to be gone by 10. So
that's very reasonable.
Yeah. And it's Sundays roll around. If they want to shoot on a Sunday, then they have to get permission from the neighbors first too.
Okay.
All the other days we can go ahead and book stuff, but Sundays we have to get permission to do that. So
do the neighbors come over and sort of peek over the fence at Louis Vuitton?
No,
looking around.
Usually before a shoot of a name like Louis Vuitton, it's not mentioned.
Okay.
We're not really allowed to put that out, because we don't want people coming up unannounced that shouldn't be there.
I just figured they might have seen the Louis Vuitton sign on someone's car.
No, they're very particular about keeping things pretty
on the down low there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the fashion suits we cater to the most, because they come in pretty stealth. There's 15, 20 people for the most part, and sometimes even smaller. And they come in, they leave a very small footprint. And then with flash and cameras and stuff like that, everything's digital now and LED, so it doesn't require a lot of power like back in the old days. When we filmed Prescription Murder, which was the pilot movie for a series called Columbo, the lights for this were massive, and it took massive amounts of power, and they'd have to bring generators up. Now you get the same lighting with LEDs, low power. So it's actually, the technology has gotten better for the house, because we're still operating on a 61-year-old circuit panel up there.
Now, Shari, I know, because I've taken groups up there, You just can't, take your fleet of cars up there. You really have to plan how you're going to ascend to this viewpoint in vehicles because there's not much room.
Correct.
How does that work?
As far as tours?
Yeah.
Well, we have a set number of cars we're allowed to have come up as far as making a reservation. Once we reach that number of cars, we have to sell out the tour. Because it is a private road, we can't park on someone else's portion of their road. So, like I said, when 6 cars, we're sold out. And so we end up with quite a long waiting list sometimes for tours. Mm-hmm. And some I can help, some I can't. But I do my best to see if I can get as many people up there as possible.
So do people figure out they can just come by Uber and walk the rest of the way?
We send them away, unfortunately, because they don't have a reservation.
Okay.
If they want to arrive by Uber, then I might be able to fit them in, but it's no guarantee because I also go by head count as well.
I see.
Because being at that house, you don't want to have 30 people coming in the house. You lose the whole feel of being at the Stahl House during a tour.
The intimacy.
If you have the intimacy of the Stahl House, you need a lower group, a lower number of people to actually really enjoy being at the Stahl House and taking it all in, the view, especially the night tour. It's the favorite.
Oh, sure.
Just to sit in the furniture and just pretend this is your house for a while and just enjoy the view, even though right down below you is the busiest Sunset Boulevard, one of the busiest roads, and all the commotion of Hollywood at night. It's just really peaceful up there.
So what's the sweet spot in terms of a number of people on a tour?
Well, right now we're keeping it around 10 because of COVID. We're trying to slowly get back to about 14 people. Okay. We're doing it in stages where before it was just exterior tours, masks on. We just now started opening up to the interior tours, but we want to keep it about 10 people right now. We'll eventually go back up to what we were, which was 14, 15. That's about it.
Kim, as you were working on the book, what surprised you about this house?
Gosh, I think just how famous it was and how many people knew about it and how many people came from, around the world to see it. And also the extent to which Buck and Carlotta opened their doors to strangers. You just don't hear about that very often. I think Carlotta loved showing off her house, and people would show up. I think she said in an interview that I got to hear that in the later years when she lived there, no fewer than 1,000 people would just show up at her house. And this is before formal tours were being held, right?
1,000 people per day or
per month? Per month. Sorry, per month.
Okay.
And that approaches or possibly exceeds the level of like a real nuisance, but she loved it so much and she loved sharing it, especially with architecture students. And I found that really amazing and endearing. And I think it was Julius Shulman who said, she was one of the best ambassadors for architecture because she shared her house. And I also love the story of when people would show up and announce, she would run around the house clearing the clutter from the countertops and putting it in the oven, for example, because she didn't want the clutter to take away from the incredible minimalist lines in the view. And I just love the image of that. And then when we were there for the research, I thought coming into this, I didn't expect to be able to stay there with Bruce and Shari. I thought, we're going to, go into the house and look at it and then stay in a hotel. And they said, no, which room do you want to sleep in? Do you want to sleep in the kids' room or in Buck and Carlotta's room? And I was shocked by that, but it really allowed me to experience just how the house interacts with the environment, how the sun passes through the house, how, in the morning you open the doors to cool it down. I mean, it really gave me the experience of what it was like to live in there for a few days. So that was amazing as well.
Now, Bruce, I know a lot of times when people, go on the tour, particularly if they have young kids, they talk about how this is just like a giant hazard trap for young children. But you grew up at this house. How did you all navigate not killing yourselves on a regular basis?
Well, the way we have the house today, we keep the foliage on the hillside cut fairly low, so it's very dramatic when you look over the edge. When Shari and I were kids, the foliage was higher. We used to play down there.
So it would catch you.
Yeah. There was a lot of... we used to go on safaris down in between the pool and that fence we have down below because the foliage was higher. But the fence was put in, one, to keep people out climbing up the hill, but also to keep us from rolling all the way down. But like Mark once said, we learned to live like mountain goats. And it was just our way of dealing with it up there. And, prior to us learning how to swim, the first thing we did when we got up was we put on life jackets. And once we learned how to swim, those got shed, but we lived our life in that pool between, eating our lunches on the edge of the pool while we were still in the pool because we wouldn't get out to go eat lunch. And then when we got enough nerve, jumping off the roof.
That's some of the great photos of your family climbing up there on the little ladder.
Yeah.
And then jumping into the pool. Something I think child psychologists would discourage now, but was just must have been so fun. I mean, it just makes me want to find a ladder.
Oh well, when Kim came for the first time, she was surprised that she was going to be spending the night there. But we figured the best way for Kim to experience the house is spend the night, and then we insisted that she jump off the roof also because. That's
what you do when in Rome, right?
Exactly.
We're actually on, I think, our 4th generation roof jumpers. The first generation was Dad and Mom, and then it was us, and then
and our cousins.
Our kids, which is 3rd generation.
Yeah.
My kids have all jumped off the roof, and now we have the 4th generation, which are the grandkids on the Gates side of the family, which is my mom's brother's side.
Okay.
So everybody's taken a jump off there as soon as they had the nerve to do it.
But Dad started that.
Dad started it.
Yeah.
And how was that, Kim?
It was immersion reporting at its best.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. They didn't have to twist my arm to do it, and they didn't even have to throw in a silver dollar for me to dive after, which is how they grew up, incented to jump off the roof. Yes.
My grandfather was a coin collector and a coin dealer. And to encourage us to jump off the roof or dive off the roof, he would throw coins at the bottom of the pool. And sometimes he would throw in valuable ones. Who knows who gets them? But Bruce and I and Mark and our cousins, we would dive in after him all the time. And then if he would offer a really good, like a Morgan silver dollar if you would dive off the roof. I was too chicken, but Bruce did it. He ended up getting the Morgan silver dollar. But it was all about coins with my grandfather.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a trick. I still got that Morgan Head silver dollar at home. I actually took a picture of it, Kim, and sent it to you. Remember that?
That's right.
But that was the bait to get me to dive off the roof for the first time.
And it worked.
And now what's so fascinating, too, that I think a lot of people didn't know is that, your life has revolved around pools since that. You learned to swim there. Your mother fed you lunch on the pool edge. I was thinking about that, swimming in the pool here at the hotel and thinking how your mom would bring you sandwiches because you didn't want to get out at lunch.
Yeah.
And then you went on to have a pool business. And so now it's and of course, your world record. Why don't you talk about your world record?
Yeah, Bruce, what's your world record?
Yeah. Talk
well,
about
after
that.
learning, thanks, Shari. After learning how to swim in that pool up there, there was a period of time where we had to move out of the house because my father lost his job, which pushed us down near the Venice area to live with our grandmother, and ended up going to Venice High School. And make a long story short, my father wouldn't let me play football, so the PE class that I was in, the coach did a brilliant thing. He had every PE class come over to the pool. Every student in school had to swim 2 laps. And the coach would pick certain people out that he thought had talent. And I was one of 3 in my PE class that said, what the heck? The dad won't let me play football. So I decided to go off with the swim team. And 7 years later, through high school, junior college, and the university swimming, I ended up April 10th of 1980, I set a world record.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in the 50-meter free.
Okay.
So.
And where were you when you set that record?
The meet was held in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
And an incredibly fast pool.
What makes a fast pool? I've always wondered that because to me it's just water.
It's just water, but the way this pool was designed, it was deep from one end to the other, which makes it fast. But it also had a deck level pool system where there was nowhere for the waves to splash against and bounce back. It just flowed over the top of the deck into the drains. So it was smooth, deep, and very fast. That's what makes a fast pool. If you're in a shallow pool that has walls where the water's bouncing around, the water gets choppy, slows everything down.
Bruce, how fast can you make it from one side of the Stahl pool to the other? Have you timed that?
I could just dive. I don't even have to take a stroke. I take maybe one and I'm on the other side.
Okay, like half a second, 1.5 seconds?
Yeah.
I mean, you probably should establish a world record for the Stahl pool.
Yeah.
Just to start off with.
Yeah, probably should.
Kim, when does the book come out?
It comes out August 31st.
Okay.
You know, there will be the print version. There probably will be a Kindle version, but I don't think there's going to be an audiobook. But then in 2022, there's a sister documentary coming out.
Okay.
And that's going to be fantastic. And they're going to be complementary products. So, you know, they don't overlap too much.
Now, Shari, tell us about the documentary.
We're actually having a really good friend of ours who's become very good at videography, if that's a word. And he's very talented in filmmaking. And we approached him about doing a documentary before we actually approached Kim about doing a book, because it took a while to find somebody to write the book that we felt comfortable with. And so Michael has taken it on. His name is Michael Hicks, and he's actually working with Eric Bricker. Are you familiar with Eric?
Oh, sure. I know Eric quite well.
Yeah. So we have both Michael and Eric Bricker on our team for doing this documentary, and they're working on it now.
That's a great team.
And oh my gosh, it's great. And we have a really great composer that has worked with Eric Bricker before on visual acoustics with Julius Shulman. And so we're very excited for this to come out. What we've seen so far is it's really good. And you'll see a little bit of it for the book trailer tonight.
Oh, okay.
Just a tiny bit.
Just a tiny smidge.
Yeah. So we're excited for that to come out as well. So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
We wanted to do this for some time, and we've been saving images and old 8mm film to show. And so we're so excited that we actually get to share this with the world.
People just go crazy about this house, don't they? I mean, it seems like its reputation builds every year.
It does. And can you tell me why that is?
I don't know. I was going to ask you.
I don't know.
Bruce, what do you think?
We keep waiting for the popularity of the house to kind of wind down, but ever since that exhibit, Kim, in 1989, mid-century Mocha, it has been on an upward trajectory ever since.
I have a theory about that.
What's your theory?
So in 1989, MoCA did an exhibition called Blueprints for Modern Living, and it really revitalized interest in the Case Study House program. And as part of that exhibition, it was one of the most ambitious architectural exhibitions ever. They used the temporary contemporary, I think it's called something else now, but it was a big police warehouse. And they rebuilt the Stahl House full scale in the exhibition. And they also built Ralph Rapson's Greenbelt House, which had never been built. He had just designed it for the Case Study House program.
Yes, sure.
And so you entered through the Greenbelt House, and then you ended at the upper floor at the Stahl House, which was built in such a way that they had TV screens that were kind of off in the distance on a lower level where you could interact with the TV screens and listen to experts talking about the Case Study House program. But when you were up at the Stahl House level, it simulated the way the glittering lights of Los Angeles roll out from the house beneath you. So it was really stunning, and you got to actually walk through and feel like you were in the house. And I think that my theory is that that's what got it on the radar of Hollywood, because right after that, I created this timeline, and I was color coding things, and I was looking at when the explosion of the house's appearance in movies started, and it started right after that. And then it's been in, a dozen movies, and gosh, I lost track of the number of articles and magazine features and newspaper features it was in. So I think that exhibition really, really got it on the radar of Hollywood. And then
Also Pierre.
Yes.
It really...
It revitalized the career of Pierre Koenig, who I think had been very underappreciated. He was still teaching at USC, but I think that finally he started getting the recognition that he deserved, because his work was now elevated in this museum. And one of my favorite stories about this exhibition is that you all went to see it, and you got to go to a museum to go home.
We actually walked through our home inside of a building. It was very strange. It was surreal. It was like, it's so funny when you grow up in the Stahl House, you know every inch of it. And then when you go into a life-size version of it that's not quite exact, you know every little bit that's off.
Yeah, what's wrong with this picture?
Yeah, it's like, this does not feel 100% right. And we knew exactly where it was off a little bit, but it was incredible to actually walk through a house, your house, somewhere else in a warehouse.
Now, Kim, is there any legacy video of this still floating around on YouTube or somewhere that people might be able to See? Do you know?
You know, there are the videos that were appearing on those TV screens are, I believe, I'm not sure if they're publicly available, but I was allowed to watch them. So I found the videographer who did those videos, and he allowed me to watch them and see what was appearing. But you can still buy the museum. There was a book published in conjunction with the exhibition, and it is still selling, and I think, you know, still being reprinted.
30-some years later.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Blueprints for Modern Living.
Yes, and it was by Elizabeth Smith.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who was in charge of she curated for MoCA, and then Richard Koschelik was the director of MoCA at the time, and then Craig Hodgetts and Ming Feng were the exhibition designers. And I talked to all of them, and I was struck by how important this exhibition was. And aside from the book, I don't think I had read anything that really made me feel like I could walk through it. So that's one of the chapters, is feeling like you're walking through this exhibition. That was a pretty big pivotal moment, I think, in the Stahl House history.
Now, Shari, for the movie, have you all got a special celebrity voiceover person yet?
No.
Like Dustin Hoffman was for visual acoustics?
I know. No, we haven't. We've sort of threw a few names around, but we don't know.
Yeah.
We just haven't pinned it down yet to the right voice.
Michael says that we may not even need one because Shari and I are doing most of the talking, and he was thinking about a celebrity voice coming in to maybe do segues into one section of the doc to another, but I don't think we made a final determination. I know he liked Mike Rowe's voice from
Dirty Jobs.
He also wanted Tim Allen.
Yeah, of
Because
course,
of Galaxy
the movie.
Quest.
Yeah.
I would love to have Tim Allen do it.
Yeah, but we still haven't made that call on whether there's going to be a need for it. So it's still up in the air, but...
Well, it's good that it's going to be released post-COVID or mid-COVID recovery so people can see it in art house theaters and places like that.
I think the goal is to release it at a film festival here early next year. That's the goal.
Like in February of 22?
Yeah, Palm Spring Film Festival, I think is what it's called.
Well, Modernism Week is February.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Film Festival is usually January or sometimes March, I think.
Okay.
I
Here.
think he's aiming for that, but
Yeah.
we'll see. Both of them, Eric and Michael.
Okay.
We'll see what actually
Now, I
happens.
have to ask, because I'm sure you looked into this too, Kim, because I'm learning how thorough that you are in your research. What happened to the replica?
The replica, after Dad built the 3D model to try to convey what him and my mom wanted to have built up there.
No, I'm talking about the one that was at the museum, the full-size.
Oh, that model.
Yeah. that.
Oh, I don't even know it. It was dismantled, and I don't know what happened to it after that.
Oh, I see. The
big one.
full
Are you
size.
talking at MoCA?
Yes, at
Yeah, the
MoCA.
We're all
MoCA.
confused on
Yeah.
what
Yeah,
model.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We thought
Okay.
you were talking about the model bug built. You know, I'm not sure. It wasn't clear if they even kept a lot of the, exhibition materials. They actually had also small models of all of the case study houses, and they were on the wall. But I'm not sure. You know, I wasn't able to locate a lot of materials. I contacted Craig and Ming, and they shared digitized, photos and schematics and whatnot. But what's interesting, though, about that is Koenig was given time off from teaching to participate, and he said he would help, but they had to do it in steel. But because of the way it was suspended actually from the ceiling of the warehouse, steel wasn't possible. It would have collapsed the roof. And so they made it out of wood, and they painted it to look like steel, and they painted it so convincingly that Pierre Koenig went, "Oh, yeah, it looks like great. You made it out of steel, great." So I'm not sure. I imagine they just tore it down afterwards.
Yeah. It's a shame, huh?
Yeah, because, usually, historically, replicas are purchased by somebody. Somebody falls in love with a house, like I'm thinking about the Greenbelt house that you mentioned. I wonder what happened to that when it was over. And usually somebody walks through these exhibitions, is completely entranced by these things, and has to have it.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I wonder who has our house.
Yeah.
The problem is
know.
these houses are built for show, and they're not built
For sale.
for sale or by code. So you would have to read.
Code schmode.
I know.
If you're going to move it out to Joshua Tree where no one's going to see you.
That's right.
What we need to do is we need to create a Stahl House that is transportable like a luminaire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be
You
fun?
Just be able to plop it down wherever you want.
Well, like
Then
the
people can
Walker
see
Guest
it.
House replica that was here over in recent
Yeah.
years that came from Florida.
Wow.
They assembled that, and they sold the replica here to someone. We still don't
Really?
know who. Yeah, they bought the replica, and then the original house in Florida in the Sarasota area I believe that property has also changed hands over the last couple of years. Because it was a guest house to a main house. And the main house, I want to say, was destroyed over the years and rebuilt, and there's a brand new one. And I think they sold the whole property off to a new owner.
Wow. No, I have a feeling that after the Mocha exhibition was complete, they just probably dismantled and hauled it away. That's what I think.
We do have the title of the only case study house to be built twice. All the other ones were built once.
If at all, right?
If at all, yeah. So I
would love to build the Rapson house.
I think Lego should come up with a case study house 22 model
They
that
did,
you could build.
actually. I think someone did make one and presented it to Lego, and I believe that they didn't accept it. They accepted the Falling Water one.
Oh, yeah, that's been around for a while.
Yeah, but they didn't do the case study house 22 one. So.
Not enough walls.
It has been recreated in gingerbread as well, but not very convincingly.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's hard to get clear gingerbread. That's the thing.
Yeah,
that's true.
I think the glass throws
It's a very
everybody
special
off.
formula.
Yeah. How do you get clear Legos?
I mean, if you really wanted to do that, you could get light plexiglass and just sort of slide it in between your gingerbread sections, right? And it would look great.
It would. So when are you going to come visit us again?
I hope very soon, yeah.
But you have to come at night.
Yeah.
This time at night.
Yeah, our first trip there in 2014 was a nighttime trip.
Okay.
You know, we have a photo of all of us sitting around the living room listening to him talk to us. And,
Really?
Telling stories.
Yeah, telling stories. And people were just thoroughly entranced, as I'm sure you've seen. They're just, their intellect completely sort of drains out of them. And they're just like, vibrating almost because it's just this spell that gets cast over you.
I'll tell you a quick story because Shari was in town and she could back me up on this one. But it's an earlier tour, one of the daytime tours, and there was this gentleman there's like a little introduction out in the carport area before you go in, rules, safety stuff like that. And this one gentleman, he was almost jumping out of his skin. He was breathing heavy, and he was just like, Shari interpreted like being impatient, but no, he was so excited. And he was this architect that was from the Northern California area, and he had brought down one of his employees. I guess he had done very well, and he honored this employee by bringing him down to the house. Well, this was his first trip, too. And once he got in, and we started talking with him, it turns out he was just so excited to be there because he hadn't been there before, and the anticipation of going through the carport door into the courtyard area, because people have no idea what they're going to see on the other side of that door, because from the roadside you don't see anything. You
looks
don't
like
see
a cargo container.
Yeah, I always joke with people, it looks like a military
Like,
storage.
are we here? Like,
This is it.
This is it?
Yeah, and the roadside side of the house has no windows. It's just steel. And my father was once asked, well, why didn't you put windows over there? He goes, why? There's no view, and it just lets in noise. That was his comment.
That's the smart man, right?
Exactly. So he focused all his windows facing the city, not the road. But this one architect, he was just over the top. And Shari and I said, well, come back for the evening tour.
And he did.
Sure enough, he did.
I'm sure he did.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And then he was even more enamored with everything.
Well,
it was so fun.
The whole thing was his studio where all these architects are working. He's got a big blow-up image of Julius Shulman's,
The famous photo.
the famous photo on the wall to inspire people,
Right.
his workers.
So basically, I think what it is from the many years of doing the tours, people come in, they've heard so much about the house, they've read so much about the house, but they don't know the family that lived there. And that the questions were always asked, what was it like to grow up here? What did you guys do as kids, and how did your mom and dad live? And they always wanted to know that. So we decided we really need to put out a book that kind of explains everything that it was like growing up there, what we did as kids, and to kind of take a different perspective instead of the architectural side of the house.
The human side of the story.
Yeah, the home
human
side,
of the
the
story.
human side of the story. And that's what we wanted to do so people can understand what it was like to live there and to get to know us, especially Buck and Carlotta.
Well, speaking of humans, my last question is, who were the women in the famous picture by Julius Shulman?
Ann Lightbody and Cynthia Tyndall. They were the friend and girlfriend of two architecture students who were asked to help out with the shoot. I think they were students. Were they students of Pierre's?
Pierre's.
And Julius liked to put people in his photographs. And so he said, tell your friends to wear dresses and come up and maybe I'll put them in the shoot. And I believe he was setting up a shot in the living room, and he had all of the lights rigged, and then he stepped outside for some reason, maybe to just look at the view, and that's when he saw them just quietly chatting in the famous corner. And he, ran inside and said, we're resetting up the shot. And so he said, just wait there, and then he staged it and told them what to do and captured the famous image. So.
And didn't they recreate that at some point later on?
They did.
They did. So LA Magazine, around 2001, Los Angeles Magazine editors Mary Melton and Chris Nichols hunted down they found the girls. And so they flew them in because they wanted to recreate the shot and kind of bring everyone together again.
Together, yes.
So Pierre was there and Julius was there. Julius Shulman, Leland Lee was there, and Buck and Carlotta were there for the first time. They were not there for the original shoot.
The original shot, okay.
Right. And so they photographed them all together, and it's a beautiful shot. I love this moment, and I love that they brought them all together and they got to reminisce. I think the two architecture students who were dating the girls were there as well. And so what a wonderful moment in the history of the house. It's kind of circles back to the original shot.
Wonderful idea.
The story's called A Shot in the Dark, and you can read it online. It's wonderful.
Well, thank all of you for coming in and chatting with me. Shari, if people want to tour the house, what's the website for them to go to?
They need to go to stahlhouse.com. And Stahl
Okay.
is STAHL. House, it's one word, .com. And go to the visit tab, and you'll see a tour calendar. And just click on a tour date and time that says register now, and you can just sign up for a tour. And if you have any questions, just call the phone number that's on Contact Us page. Thank you.
And Kim, what's the name of the book?
It's the Stahl House, Case Study House 22, The Making of a Modernist Icon. So Chroma Chronicle, and it's available all the places books are sold.
Oh, great. Excellent. All right, this has been great. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
That was George chatting with Bruce Stahl, Shari Stahl, and Kim Cross, poolside, of course, in Palm Springs.
Let's go now across the country and get an update on the annual New York Architecture and Design Film Festival with founder and executive director Kyle Bergman. Hey, Kyle, how are you?
I'm good, George. How about you? How's it going down in the South?
It's great. It's good to have you back on the show. And I know, like all of us, it's frustrating not to get people back live again for the film festival.
It is, in the big picture, the film festival is a small deal. Obviously, it's important to me, but the world is just spinning and churning, and we're all so busy on so many fronts. And it's unfortunate the festival is not happening, but we'll do it online. We'll do it in some cities, and we're poised to make it happen strong for next year.
Well, it was really remarkable last year when it had to be virtual. You really had a lot of participation from, all over now, not just in the cities.
Yeah. Well, it turns out that in 2019, we have 24,000 people roughly attending ADFF events. And when we pivoted to online, it was about that same number.
Okay.
Although it was spread out in different places. So it was about the same. And we're looking forward for the year where we can get full in-person and full online activated.
Well, what have you got lined up for architecture this coming fall?
So we have a great selection of films. Let's start with a film called Breuer's Bohemia.
Yeah.
Which is,
we had on James Crump recently.
Yeah, so James has this great history of making films, writing, history. It's just restoring some beautiful old houses that he's been involved with. So this is a film about looking at a very specific niche of Breuer's work, mostly around Litchfield, Connecticut in the 50s, and looking at what's happening at the time, looking at the people who were involved, his patrons, and there's just a fascinating scene that's happening in Litchfield, Connecticut at this time. So the film really captures the whole scene, and there's people like Calder is there, and a lot of other artists. It's really a great, fascinating look at a small slice of Breuer's work.
Cool. What else is going on?
Well, other films I think that are focusing on architecture. Actually, we have this great film called From Earth to Sky,
Yeah.
It's a survey of native architects from around North America and focuses on 7 of them. Obviously, Douglas Cardinal is a main feature in the film, but really looking at what native architects are doing, who's there. There's a selection of men and women involved in that, and it's a fascinating piece. And it's also, the filmmakers end up going to, there was a conference in New Zealand that was bringing together native architects from all over the world, and they had like a 7-day conference, so they highlight that as part of the film. And also there was part of the Venice Biennale a few years ago, the Canadian entry had a lot of the native architects. So there's not one way of thinking about these people, but there is a strong connection to the land and to the earth with all the architects surveyed. And it's made by a filmmaker from Toronto. Fascinating, really great, fun film to watch.
And you've got a film from Germany about the brutalist buildings there.
Yeah, so it's a film by Nathan Eddy. He's made some films for us before, or he's made some films that we've showed before. A film called Starship Chicago about a Helmut Jahn building and Nathan is really into preservation. And this one is about a crazy brutalist building in Berlin. It just looks like a big battleship. It was a science research center, and it's very kind of in the news a lot in Berlin right now, whether they should save it or tear it down. And the film makes a strong case for saving it. It's just a unique building. I've never seen another building that looks like it. And Nathan is a really clever filmmaker. It's a compelling story, and you come out really having a strong sense of whether you think the building should be saved or not, I think. Actually, this year we got a lot of films on brutalism. We're not showing that many of them, but it is just a topic that people are curious about.
Another building that comes to us from Germany this year is called the Colossus of Rügen, the longest building in the world.
Exactly. The longest building, a film called Inside Porter. It is made by a Berlin filmmaker, and she tells this great story. It's really a social political history of this building. Originally built by Hitler and the Nazis, looks at it from the National Socialist perspective of what Hitler was trying to do with these buildings, and trying to make a place for people from the Third Reich to go spend a few days at the beach. And it's just kind of this big, brutal, long building, and then becomes part of East Germany. And it looks how the socialist government incorporated this building into the political thinking of the times. And then 1989, it becomes part of Germany, and it has this kind of capitalist vision of the building. And she's woven a beautiful story of one building, and it shows that the building is neutral, and how it's being used is really how humans are using it and interacting it are telling a political story. She's an excellent filmmaker and storyteller, and it's a must-see. It's a great film, Inside Porter.
And finally, you've got a nice documentary about Bruce Mau, which people know in the design world, but not necessarily in the general public.
You know, it is interesting how Bruce Mau crosses so many boundaries, and he's touched so many things. I mean, I think the architects know him, of course, from Small, Medium, Large, Extra Large, the book that he did for Rem Koolhaas a long time ago. That was like a block of brick. I mean, it was really broke a lot of boundaries on publishing and architecture books. But he has done things, museum exhibits. Of course, he's well known for the massive change exhibit he did about 7 years ago. And he is a big thinker, really talking about everything as design and how do you design your life. He's optimistic. He is thoughtful, great guy to work with as we've been talking about getting ready for these screenings. And it is really the kickoff film for all of the ADFF events happening this year. And we hope to do an in-person screening of the film in late October in New York. More information will be announced about that soon.
Will Bruce be at any of those?
Bruce is planning on being in the New York screening that we'll do hopefully on October 23rd. He is going to be at opening night in Toronto on November 3rd. And he had been planned to be in New York for the opening night and Los Angeles. But unfortunately, both those festivals have been canceled due to COVID.
Right.
But he will be doing Q&As. And so anyone who's watching the films online, and online will be November 17th to December 3rd, there'll be a pre-recorded Q&A with Bruce and his wife, Busy Williams, who is his business partner and wife and a critical part of their design team.
And the last one I want to ask you about is narrated by America's #1 architecture fan, Brad Pitt. It's Unity Temple, Frank Lloyd Wright's modern masterpiece.
Yeah. Well, it is a story about the renovation of Unity Temple. So it's really a preservation renovation story. I mean, most of us know Unity Temple. Hopefully, if you get to Chicago, you go see it. It's a must see. It's one of the seminal buildings in modern architecture. And the story, it's great because it's not just about the building, but the renovation. And the renovation allows you to do a really deep dive into the details of the building, the color, the light, the sense of how do you restore and how do you keep a masterpiece like that together. It's a 55-minute film, and it's a delight to watch. It's really, really great film.
And overall, Kyle, how many films total will be in the festival this year?
The online version of the festival will have about 18 to 22 films. There's still a few that we're in discussion with. The pandemic is a challenge for the filmmakers as well, because most of them want to have in-person screenings. So when there's less in-person screenings, there's lots of decisions about how and when they're going to release their films. The pandemic is challenging all of us every day.
All the time.
Yeah. But at this point, you just have to plow forward, move forward. It is making us rethink so many things, but at the end, we'll come through it stronger. I was just watching a film about 20 years since 9/11, a film that's playing up at Toronto Film Festival. As challenging as those times were, we're a resilient species, and we're able to get through it and come out to the other side stronger and more whole. And some of the stories in this film is talking about what people went through 20 years ago, and look at them 20 years later and how humans are just amazing. The ability to survive and take a tragedy and turn it into something positive. I believe we'll do that with the pandemic as well.
Kyle, where can people access the festival online?
So everything is done through our website, adfilmfest.com. And we have our platform this year is a company called Eventive, but all the information is accessed online, and you can buy, for the online festival, you can buy single tickets, you can buy a fistful of 5 films, or you can buy the whole package to see all the films. You can watch the films anytime during the festival, any time of day, from any device almost. And we're running it right through Thanksgiving holidays. So we really hope that people will take a little time during the Thanksgiving holidays, sit down with your families, and watch some design films. It's a good pairing, a little bit of football, a little bit of turkey, and a little bit of design films.
There you go. There you go. Well, thanks so much, Kyle. I can't wait to see this year's lineup.
Great. It's always great to talk to you, George.
Our final guest, Raleigh, North Carolina architect Albert McDonald, works for the regional design firm Clark Nexon. He's also a member of the long-running architect rock and roll band Eyes Go Lightning, recently renamed Fallow. He's created an Instagram account showcasing their personal art projects, from painting to sculpture to textiles, that's a hit with both architects and the general public. And we'll get to hear a song from Fallow. Here's George and Albert.
Albert, you have spent some time during the pandemic creating an unusual new Instagram feed. What's that all about?
Well, yeah, so when everyone went into quarantine, I think we all found a lot of spare time on our hands. So I went back to some of the things that I was interested in when I was younger, and I started painting, watercolors, pen and ink type stuff, acrylic inks, and started posting them to my personal Instagram feed. Yeah. And I, follow a lot of friends and local designers, architects in the area, and started noticing that there was a pattern emerging that a lot of these architects were doing some of the same stuff, or at least finding creative outlets outside of their design careers now that they were kind of stuck at home. And Roger Cannon of Cannon Architects was producing some really beautiful work himself. And so I reached out to him and I said, we can't be the only couple guys in the area that are doing this. I mean, we as makers of things just really enjoy making stuff, right? And so when we're stuck at home, what do? Well, we kind of, get resourceful. And so he said, well, in fact, I know several other architects in the area that are doing this. I think you're right. Let's reach out and see if we can find any other folks. And that's when the idea of starting this Instagram feed came about. So we just started reaching out to anyone and everyone we knew in the architecture community, from NC State to local practitioners, friends of ours, students at NC State. And everyone just sort of welcomed it with open arms and said, yeah, I'd be happy to submit. So we've been submitting now for several months. We're up to our 47th. I think this week will be our 48th post. Some of that's some repeat artists, but we're getting a lot of attention and a lot of encouragement from our local designers.
So what's the name of the feed so people can be looking it up while we talk?
Sure. It's Architect Artists Triangle 2020.
Architect Artists Triangle 2020. All spelled out.
All spelled out.
That's like 30 characters.
Easy to remember.
And who are some of the artists you have?
Well, to date, like I said, myself and Roger, we've gotten some work from Dean Hoverston over at NC State, David Hill as well, who's the director of
Dean is not his first name. He's an actual dean.
Sorry, he is the dean. Right. Mark Hoverston. Some of his work. We've gotten some students from NC State, Jacqueline Sanders. We've gotten furniture from Sam Reynolds. Let's see, our latest post was from Murray.
Murray Wisnett.
In Charlotte. So we're starting to actually branch outside of the triangle, which is kind of interesting. Frank Harmon, of course, with some of his amazing watercolors. Dennis Stallings and his some of his furniture work. Vincent Whitehurst, and he does a lot of sort of, I guess you'd say, tool making, handcrafted spoons and cutlery, things like that.
Really? He makes cutlery?
He does. He makes these really wonderful knives. I have one, and I recently just bought one for a friend, but they are amazing knives, handcrafted. They have this really wonderful kind of rough texture to them, but they work amazingly. They're just, I use it all the time. It's a beautiful knife.
Is there going to be a show, an exhibition, a party, anything?
I absolutely hope so. One of the, when this started and we were all super excited about it.
Yeah.
We had all these ideas like, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to build this thing up and get all these people to contribute. And then once we roll out of the pandemic, we'll have a portfolio of work that we can then put out to local galleries and coffee shops, restaurants, and see if they want to potentially have a rotating exhibition that may move around the triangle of some of the work that we've put together over the past year. So that's kind of our next step. Along with that, we've also been talking with Frank Harmon to reach out to some of his contacts around the country to see if there are any folks that might want to contribute from across the nation to this feed. So while it started as a very kind of localized couple of people talking about, art, to now, well, there's a creative side outside of architecture that a lot of folks have around the country. And so let's see if we can bring some of those folks in too.
You don't hear a lot really about architects being artists so much. I mean, back in the day, a lot of artists design their own furniture for clients, and most of them didn't make it themselves, though. So what's emerging now as a favorite? Is it more painting or sculpture or?
Well, it's a pretty big mix. I think in terms of the visual arts, there's a lot of painting, mixed media type 2D work. There is a lot of handmade, crafted furniture, and like I said, in Vincent's case, tool implements, types of things like that. A little bit of photography, a little bit of sculpture, and we're trying to figure out how to do music too. I was going to ask about that. There are a lot more musicians in this area that are architects that I was kind of surprised by. So we're trying to figure out how do you bring music to a visual medium, and so we're trying to sort of navigate that right now.
We brought a podcast to a visual medium. Come on, you can do it.
It can't be that hard, right?
Come on.
Yeah, right. Maybe we can host a show here. We can do architect musicians at the next one.
Well, speaking of that, you were part of an all-architect band.
Mostly architect. Yeah.
For 15 years?
Oh, gosh. Well, we started playing together probably about 15 years ago, and we started out as this sort of angsty garage rock, a lot of yelling and really loud noise. We actually played one of your events. I don't know if you remember. And we drove everybody outside. So, that was fun. And I think as we were writing these songs for that Eyes Go Lightning band, when we would rehearse, we'd always sort of fall back on these kind of alt country kind of things when we were just goofing around. And finally, it just dawned on us that maybe we should act our age a little bit and play the music that is a little more befitting. So we kind of scrapped Eyes Go Lightning completely, started fresh with Fallow Ground.
The new band name.
The new band.
Yeah.
And that's a kind of an alt country kind of band in the, the vein of Tyler Childers or Coulter Wall or Sturgill Simpson. We've been in Fallow Ground for, I guess, around 5 years. Gosh, has it been that long? Maybe 5 years now. And the band size has grown too. So we have Shan Rushing, architect, colleague of mine, plays lead guitar. I'm rhythm, guitar, and vocals. Don Crambuel, who is another colleague and an architect, is on drums. And we have Matt Brewer, who is a mechanical engineer that plays keyboards for us, and a structural engineer for State Construction. Mike Ali is our bass player, and his sister, who has nothing to do with the design world at all. She's a teacher.
A token teacher in the architecture group.
She plays fiddle for us. So
wow.
And then when we can get my cousin to come in from Asheville, she sings backup.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, here's Fallow Ground with Drifted Away.
Guess I must have got stoned when I heard you were gone. I don't remember, Lord, I can't say. The night just drifted away. Parts of the same old game. When I lit up, never thought I'd stay. Before I could come down, you drifted away. Oh, you drifted away, yeah. Like cigarettes smoke under a streetlight. smoke under a street light, you just drifted away. Drifted away.
That's great, Albert.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I know you guys are super busy with your daytime architecture and engineering jobs, but do you ever perform places, or where can people buy an album from you?
Sure. Well, we're on all your streaming services, so Spotify, Apple. We released that song, Drifted Away, along with the B-side, Sweet Lorraine, as a vinyl that I am hoping to get into record stores locally to sell. We got them just when we finished recording, mastering, and pressing the singles right when quarantine hit. So I have a box of these records sitting in my closet right now that I'm just ready to sort of get out. But we play locally. We play at Slim's, the Poorhouse. We played a Maker's Market out in Chapel Hill, which was our first show in over a year and a half. We played that just a couple weeks back. So we're just starting to sort of get back into the swing of things as things open back up. But you can catch us in Raleigh, and we'll start hitting Durham and Chapel Hill and Carrboro and all those places.
So I got to ask, has like any of the AIA chapters or conventions asked you guys out to come and play yet?
No, I'm afraid not. We may have burned that bridge when we played your Triangle Modernist years back. I don't know.
Oh, no, it's great. I can see you playing the AIA North Carolina conference up in Nashville.
Well, I don't know. I'll put it out there that we'd be willing to discuss it.
Okay, cool. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was a real pleasure.
Thanks for listening. U.S. Modernist Radio is underwritten by Wendy Robineau and Don Beskin, and by Modernist Realtor Angela Roll. Okay, Tom, wrap us up.
Visit usmodernist.org's massive archives to listen to past shows, discover documentation of 8,000 significant modernist houses, and access 4 million pages of classic 20th century architecture magazines. U.S. Modernist Radio is produced by Soundtracks Recording Studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. Our theme song was performed by George Smart and Robinson Earl. Rogue archivist Carrie Cesarino researches guests while she rents her 2 kids for surprisingly reasonable rates to families who need cute, well-behaved children for charter school interviews. U.S. Modernist Radio is a production of Modernist Archive Incorporated, a nonprofit educational archive for the documentation, preservation, and promotion of modernist residential design. I'm Tom Guild. George and I'll be back soon with another Celebrity House with a Pool edition of U.S. Modernist Radio.